Well, welcome back to Paris. We are a little under 6 hours away from England against South Africa in the second semi-final at the Stade de France. Tim is with me from Egg Chasers. Many of you will have watched his stuff already, but Egg Chasers on YouTube, go and check out all his stuff as well. Tim, we've recovered from Argentina against New Zealand, which wasn't a great spectacle. My question for you in this video is, how did England beat the Springboks?
We can't. Anyway, nice chatting, mate. No, come on. 6 hours. 6 hours,
6
by
hours
the way.
to go, yeah.
It feels like it should be less than that.
Yeah, I know. We've got a bit of time to kill, don't we?
You've just ordered another drink as well. Do you want to pace yourself a bit?
I am going to have to start after this one, maybe.
Right, how do England beat the Springboks? It's interesting because it's like a role reversal from 4 years ago, isn't it?
Totally.
When you actually map the 2019 England and South Africa teams onto this, it's like they've just flipped. Traded places.
So to recap, 2019, England going into that final off the back of arguably the best performance in English rugby history. Everyone's saying that England are playing all the rugby. South Africa hadn't had that tougher draw to get themselves to a final, weren't playing that great.
Off the back of an incredible one-off performance against New Zealand.
Yeah, exactly. But this is, as you say, is the opposite. Those two teams are in completely different places.
No, England are playing a very pragmatic, kick territory oriented game. And actually, well, the reality is, I think with this game is, and I think just to underline it, we're going to be speculating about how England could beat South Africa, but England could play the perfect game with the most perfect game plan, execute, all players play 9 out of 10, and England still lose.
Is that because ultimately they require the Springboks to not quite be as on it as we perhaps saw them last week against the French?
I think that's what it's going to require. It's going to require, well, whether it's a case of England managed to neutralise some of what South Africa do so well, or whether it's South Africa just struggle to back up performance after performance. And that's what was so impressive about New Zealand, is the emotional high of last week, the effort that took, and they managed to back it up and just dispatch Argentina. And I suspect South Africa are going to bring, if not their A game, close to it.
I am interested in the fact, though, that South Africa have gone unchanged. And maybe, look, I think Rugby Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber as tactical coaches and the way in which they've approached so many of the challenges that this Springboks team has faced, they've often been proved right in terms of those selections. But I still look at that game against France a week ago. It was bruising. And to go completely unchanged, I just would have thought maybe you would be better off freshening it up a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I expected to see Lekanyo Am involved at some point in the squad, or Kane and Moody, which Rugby Erasmus was even teasing about. So it does give you the suggestion that they've been done all their tinkering in the months before.
These are their guys.
They've done a bit of tinkering in the pool stages, and now they've gone, right, that's it, we've got our team. The danger is, and this is what England did 4 years ago, again to map 2019 onto 2023, England had that incredible performance against New Zealand, and then when you get the feeling they went, right, that's how we play, done. Whereas actually, I think what Steve Borthwick is brilliant at, and he's shown this at club level, and I think he's showing it now at international level, is he will tailor a game plan and a selection specifically on who he's playing.
Yeah, and actually speaking to someone else earlier in the week as well, when I kind of raised this point of should they not have rotated a little bit more, they said when you get to this stage of a World Cup, you're not really doing much training anymore. You kind of know your game plan, your fitness has been done many, many months before.
Yeah, and to emphasise that, what South Africa have been mainly doing is recovery and walkthroughs. So it's no full-on bosh in training anymore. It's just making sure everyone knows the processes. Quite often it's just walking through the game plan. And
on Lekanyo Am as well, wouldn't it be the most Rugby Erasmus and Jacques Nienaber thing to throw him into a World Cup final if they do get through, having not seen him at all?
Yeah. I was going to say, now I've said they're going to keep the same team for a final, obviously he's going to change it all.
He's going to make loads of changes, go for a 7-1 bench or something. So the game today then, England obviously heavy underdogs, South Africa, a much more all-round team than we saw maybe a couple of years ago. All of this week I was thinking, if England are, merci monsieur, I was always thinking that...
Café au lait. Yeah.
Merci. All this week, well cheers anyway, wait for your coffee. All this week...
santé, sorry. Salut is hello. Hello.
All of this week I was thinking, if England are to beat South Africa, it has to be ugly, they're going to slow it down, it's going to be a lot of kicking, it's going to probably be set piece. And actually, the closer we've got to kick-off, and partly reading some of the stuff in the Times, the newspaper in the UK, and looking at how other people approached it, actually, are they better off backing their fitness, which apparently has been a real focus for England in the build-up to the World Cup?
South Africa's fitness coach from the last World Cup.
And England think they are the fittest team at this World Cup. Actually, is England's best approach to inject as much pace into this game as they can and try and run South Africa around the pitch? Where are you with it at the moment?
Well, there's two things there. Run South Africa around the pitch. No, because England do not have that game plan in their locker. They cannot do that. But they can speed things up. So line-outs, go quickly. Scrums, get set really early. Like, you can keep the aerobic pressure on South Africa and those big men. But I don't think I want to see England chucking the ball from side to side all night. I think they're still very much going to kick a lot.
Yeah.
And I think Freddie Stewart is going to be selected not just because of his aerial work defensively, but because of the threat that he can bring and his attacking force. I think you're going to see some. I think England will have looked at New Zealand beating South Africa in the Rugby Championship. The short range kicking
game, yeah.
I think that's going to be massive. And I think Freddie Stewart is in as much as an attacking force there. And, you know, a lot of people complain about no Henry Arundel, but what they have in Johnny May and Elliot Daly, Messi, is they have wingers who will just run after a ball all day long. Johnny May is like a dog after a ball in the park.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? It's really interesting with Freddie Stewart, and obviously all the talk this week is he's one of the best aerial players in the world, and he absolutely is. But me and you were both at Twickenham last year when England lost to South Africa. It was possibly Freddie Stewart's worst game under the high ball that he's had for England, which I don't know, I just find quite interesting that no one's really spoken about that. And also, I feel like people are speaking about Kurtley Arendse and Cheslin Kolbe as in that's an area in the air that England can get at them. Certainly with Cheslin Kolbe, I think given his height, he's one of the best aerial players in the world.
It's fair. It's fair. I think it's about bending that South African shape defensively. When I looked at South Africa, not South Africa. Well, yeah, when I have looked at South Africa during this World Cup, when I saw them against Ireland and against Scotland, their defensive line doesn't break. But I saw it against with New Zealand last night. They just hold their shape and absorb everything that comes their way, and then it's the transition that they're incredible at. They can just get the ball back, turn over, and bang, they're gone. And South Africa are getting very, very good at that as well. That's what scares me about them. So I think the short-range kicking is to try and just change the picture.
Try and move them around a little bit. Drop goals back as well for England, you
100%,
thought?
Drop goals back.
I would almost be quite happy if England get themselves into the red zone. If you go a couple of phases, you don't really feel like you're making massive inroads. Stick it back in the pocket, take the drop goal.
Or just have a pop. What's the worst that happens? You get a 22 and you get the ball back on halfway.
Yeah, absolutely. The one final thing I'll say, and the reason that I'm fearful from an England perspective going into this game is I look at South Africa and where they are now, and I almost don't really see how England can match them over the course of 80 minutes, whether it be up front physically. And then I look back to the England-Samoa game in this World Cup, and I thought what Samoa did really well, which England hadn't had done to them in the pool stages up to that point, was shipped it wide. I think if you can stretch this England defence, there is gains to be made in terms of their defensive shape. I know England defensively have been pretty good, but again, I just feel like South Africa have that in their locker as well, which is why I think ultimately, even though apart from if you're a Springbok fan, most of us are hoping for a much closer game, and I think it will be closer. I think ultimately it will be a win for the Boks.
Yes, I think I've said this week, if the game was played 10 times, I think England win 2, possibly, maybe 1.5, as it currently is. And so what's that? At best, a 20% chance. So I think Steve Borthwick has made the right selections to try and engineer that 20% chance, but the odds are heavily against. Like you say, I hope it's close. And one thing we haven't mentioned: do England have a version of a bomb squad on the bench? Carl Sinclair, Theo Dan,
Ellis Genge,
Danny Kerr,
Ollie
George
Lawrence.
Ford, Ollie Lawrence.
Possibly, yeah. I think England.
Notice I didn't mention Billy Vunipola.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think the South Africans will be too worried about the England team generally, particularly that front row after what happened in the World Cup final. But look, it's going to be fascinating, as we say. About 5 hours or so until kick-off at the Stade de France. Put it in the comment section. How do you see this game going? And are there any areas that you think England could get at this Springboks team? But we're both saying South African victory. We think so. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video, go and check out Egg Chasers as well on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.